Years ago, I was traveling in Egypt. We were in a market and I stumbled across a stand, and the whole stand was covered with prices, price tags in all different languages. And it said hassle free pricing, hassle extra 10%. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live with the Pricing Lady. I am Janine Liston, and this show is all about helping people like you, small business owners, get better at pricing so you can build sustainably profitable businesses and be confident about charging for the value you deliver. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to this week's special guest, Sophia Syed. Hello, Sophia.
Hi, Janine. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be great. Oh, I have a visitor that might be at my door. We're homeschooling guys in Canada, so I do have these surprise people that join us.
Okay.
You want to say hi?
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so you can go. What do you need, honey?
Are you doing it?
I'm doing an interview. We're live right now, and you've broken into my studio.
Oh, the benefits of live filming.
Yeah, exactly. Do you need anything?
My tongue tastes gross.
Okay, that's fine. Anyways, Janine, we'll continue. And Zara, you can stay for a second, then you're going to leave, okay?
Okay. So thank you, Sophia. I'm so glad to have you and your daughter here. Welcome to you both. So today's show is all about the impact of geography and culture on pricing behavior.
Yeah.
Now, Sophia, why don't we get started and you can share with us first a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so as you can see, I'm a mom, and I have two young girls, one of which is gone to school for the first time in almost a year, just for end of year school, hand off to the next grade. And then Zara's here at home, so her dad is not here. Zara, you're going to go now, right, honey?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I started a product-based business, basically filling a need. There was a culture gap. In North America, we celebrate Eid and Ramadan, which are Muslim festivities. And unfortunately, we didn't have any of the products on the shelf like you would see for Christmas and Halloween and Easter and whatnot. And because I'm growing up, I grew up in Canada, and the girls are growing up in Canada. I really wanted them to have the opportunity to also have these festive decorations. And it's easy to make them, but at the end of the day, I'm a busy mom like myself. I trained as a physiotherapist. I didn't have the ability to always DIY my products. So I went ahead and I decided, let's wholesale them, let's create them, and then let's see if we can get it on the shelves at a big store like a Walmart. And the reason why is because I wanted it to be accessible to everybody. I didn't want it to just be those individuals who could afford, no offense to Etsy, but Etsy is, of course, is a premium marketplace because everyone is hand making, which is great. It's something that I support, and I wanted to continue supporting. So we do have some products on there as well. But at the end of the day, not everyone can afford an Etsy product, right? So that's how we decided to pivot. And Janine, I'm going to apologize. Oh, she's gone. You're going to go to Daddy now? Please, thank you. I'm going to lock my door. Give me 1 second. Live.
All right, everyone. Well, she takes care of that. So, but the business that you've been telling us about is called also Sophia, correct?
Yes. So the product-based business is also Sophia. And it grew very quickly in the middle of COVID. And that is, I guess, where I started realizing that intersection between pricing and culture and geography. And I know that's one of our big topics for the day. But being South Asian and opening with your story about the conversation or the signage you saw, 10% extra for hassle-free.
For a hassle-free price.
Right. Because it's the culture. And I think it's so incredible that even myself, being South Asian, I realize it is part of the culture. Traveling different worlds, different cultures have different aspects of pricing. And so sometimes part of the journey of purchasing is the bartering, right? Okay. So, and it's hard to shake that cultural act, I suppose, even when you come to a America. So one of the things I found with my products was if I was in a location like a flea market location, that's where I started because that's where I wanted to see if the product had any merit, right? We have about 50 products now, but we started off with money envelopes and balloons and banners, just very simple, small things. And people were haggling. And I actually said to one lady, I said, listen, $1 for you shouldn't be a big deal. And I said, I literally said, we do not bargain at this table because it's such a small amount of money, but it's built into the culture. So I just think it's fascinating, really.
Yeah, it really is fascinating. Before we get into that, so you also have a second business, which I want to make sure that people here understand. So it's called the Bosset Club, correct?
That's right. So the business Bosset Club came out of a need because many women were asking for help. They were women and men, of course. They saw that this small business that only sells about 8 to 12 weeks a year had made it into Walmart Canada, and they started asking questions, right? They're like, how did you do that? What did you do? How do you manufacture? All the questions. And I want to use the also Sophia product-based platform to go and now give information. I wanted to be able to say, okay, if you want to know about, like if you're an entrepreneur, you're a budding entrepreneur, if you want to start something, feel free to come over to Bosset Club. We have a website, bossetclub.com, and all the socials, but you'll find us everywhere. It says Bosset Club. And basically that is meant for the entrepreneur and to give some education, and there's a podcast. So so that's the second half, the side of the business, I suppose.
Okay, excellent. So let me first ask you, I always like to find out where people started when the first time you had to sit down and set a price for something in your business. What was that like for you?
Oh man. So it's difficult for me because as I'm a trained physiotherapist or physical therapist, and I work in the public sector. So me and pricing were like on two different worlds, right? Because I never had to collect a dime from my patients or my clients, right? They would either be OHIP, which is our public funded system in Canada. And I never had to put a dollar amount on my hours. So I know in consulting, or if you're working for a firm, you have to cost yourself out. I always hear my husband and my brother-in-law, all of them are used to that. So when it came to pricing, it was difficult. Even it's more difficult for me to charge for any services associated with Bosset Club. If I just can't do it. I have a mental block. But what I did for the products, because it's more, it's not acceptable for me, but natural to exchange money for products, because that's society. I actually went ahead and I looked at who my ideal customer or client would be, and I already targeted the average client or customer of Walmart Canada. Now it's a little bit different in Canada because we don't have a Target or whatever the equivalent is in Europe. So all of our Target and Walmarts are all the customers are sitting in Walmart.
Right.
So I would look at that customer. I looked at a product that was similar, and then I would try to be competitive. And I would say, I want to make sure that the average Walmart customer can afford this product. And I saw myself as I'm a Walmart customer. Like I tend to go to that retailer more so than any other retailer for almost all of it now, right? They offer the food all the way to the toys.
Right.
So that's how I started. Like I just went and I did the market research, really is what it was all about. And then making sure I tailored the price point to the client that I was serving.
Right.
And I think that helped, right? So when the Walmart buyer came knocking, it wasn't, to them, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is too high of a price point. I think to them, they were like, oh, this fits within our price guarantee. And at the same time, we're making the margins, because that's always a big, thing for them. They need to make their numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what I really loved about that is that you started with the customer. And I always tell people pricing is rooted in a deep understanding of the customer. And in this case, you had two. You had your end customer, but you also had Walmart or other vendors also as customers as well. And that makes a difference because they think differently, and you have to look at each one from a different perspective. So that's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about this culture and geography, because I think as we were talking a couple of weeks ago about you being on the show, you were talking about some of your travels and some of the things that you've observed and experienced. And how has that influenced what you do? Well, what did you see or what did you observe? And then how has that influenced how you behave or how you've chosen to work with pricing?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So when we chatted previously, we spoke about how I traveled, of course, to India. I have not been to the Middle East, surprisingly, and I've been to Africa. And over there, the bartering system, negotiation when it comes to price point is acceptable, right? I find that it is part of the culture. And so they know that. And that's why I found that sign to be so hilarious. It's just great. It's such a humorous thing for me. And then, of course, when we come over to a European country or a North American country, it may not be acceptable in certain environments. So, for example, I'm not going to go into a retailer like a Walmart and go barter with the cashier because she's going to be like, "Excuse me, like this is not my store. I'm just employed here, right?" So,
yeah, you're holding up the line, ma'am.
Like security, person's confused. So it's interesting, right? But then in certain environments in North America and probably Europe, we will have it be acceptable to have a bartering system, right? And so as a small business, you should know inherently not only who your customer is, but where are you going to be selling? And so if you're going to a flea market, it could still be acceptable, right? You're not in an environment where you're barcoded and the barcode will like channel all the way up, right? You're in this very freestyle environment. Or if you're at a craft store or a farmer's market, you may have a similar situation with a similar group of people. Now, I went to China and Japan as well, just for my own travels, like, on vacation. And it's not really acceptable to barter in Japan. It's almost like an insult to them because you're insulting them on what they have valued their product. And if you think about it as a small business, you are putting your blood, your sweat and your blood, your time, your energy into the product. And now somebody's coming and saying, well, I think you are not valid. So they take it really personally. Somehow we still managed to barter with one of the merchants there only because we were buying like 20 shirts or something. And my husband wanted an action figure. No, don't ask. But so I thought it was funny because we still managed in some ways to barter. But I work with a lot of Asian countries to manufacture. So I know inherently that I can't be too, like I will ask, and they obviously know, they know if we're ordering a large quantity that they have to be forgiving on the price. So then, everybody's winning. But knowing that, I would not be as aggressive as compared to if I was bartering with somebody in, say, India. And the reason why is because they have already counted for bartering in their price tag.
Yeah.
Right. They've already increased it.
And that's an important point, because if you're going to be selling to a target group where bargaining is part of the deal, then you want to have considered that in your pricing. One thing that I discuss with clients all the time is, understanding where your walkaway point is and what are the points between where your first price is and the walkaway price, and how are you going to handle, those levels and what exchange of value you're going to give. When I worked in the corporate world, one of the first places I ever went to do a negotiation was China. And it was not easy. They are very tough negotiators.
They stand their ground. They do.
Yeah.
They do. I think you need to make friends if you can. That's what I found. I think they go the extra mile if they really like you. If they're kind of like whatever, they won't give you the time of day. Sorry, it's not working for us. But yeah,
well, it's very relationship based. And I think that a lot of times the cultures where the selling process is a little bit more relationship based, you have, maybe I'm overstretching this here, but there's a little bit more bargaining going on as opposed to when it's just a transaction that's happening, and that could be one indicator there. And I also think that different cultures it's not just culture, it's even different families. You're raised in different ways. I don't remember my parents doing a lot of haggling unless they were buying a car.
There you go, right? And there's also margin in a car, right? There versus margin and maybe other things. And even similarly, a house, right? That's, if you think about it, it's acceptable in the North American culture. And I imagine Europe is similar. You correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never bought a house in Europe.
Me either, but yes, it is.
Yes. So because the price tag allows for a little bit of negotiation, because it is thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right.
I think it's almost like an energy exchange, right? So it's worth the energy exchange to say, okay, well, I can't manage $10,000 more for this house. Is there a way for you, right? Because it's worth the energy exchange. But then, contrasting that with my flea market / small vending event to sell my money envelope, and the lady was arguing for $1. I looked at her, I'm like, lady, you arguing with me is not worth my energy exchange. Like, the dollar is not going to affect you or me. So why are you having this conversation?
Yeah, and it's fun. It's interesting to watch. The first time I went to India, I was there on a business trip, and after being there for a week, almost, I guess it was about 10 days, he's like, the guy who was taking us around India, he's like, what do you guys want for dinner? And I was like, anything but curry. I just need a 1 day break. Just one meal.
Yeah.
And so he took us to like a Domino's pizza. I think they have Domino's or the equivalent there. And I was really hungry. So the waiter came over and I was like, I'll have it. And he goes, no. I have to negotiate the price of a Pepsi and a pizza first.
Oh my God. And you're like, why? You're like,
I'm just hungry. But yeah, it really is different. It really is different. And I think the important point here for those of you who are listening is that depending on who you're targeting, it's important to keep these things in mind. Now, does that mean that if you're selling a certain product or service into any customer group in a country that does a lot of haggling, that you have to haggle? Not necessarily, but it means that you should think about when and if there are times and how you're going to handle that, because I think the preparation is absolutely key.
Exactly. And, you don't have to, like you said. I think we have, especially in North America, moving the cultural norm towards saying this is the price. I think many people have accepted that. I don't have many hagglers or bargainers that come forward anymore. Even if I go to a small vending event, I don't go to too many. I usually go to one a year, and they don't haggle anymore. They really truly just say, okay, this is the price. But that's probably because the people who are shopping at my particular business are of my, I want to say age group, but like cohort, right? They've been brought up and born in Canada, and they know that it takes a lot of effort to get a business off the ground. And so by supporting a small business, then, you're supporting the community. And so I think that is the common language I found now when I go to the small vending. I do still have customers that are like, I want a discount, or I'm waiting for a discount. And you're always going to have that. You're always going to have the price shoppers. So if you want to incorporate that into your business, you definitely have to, when you're doing your pricing, your price analysis, or your I guess, checking your margins, just count for a reduction, right, in your margins if you are going to have to put things on sales to attract that specific buyer. But you don't have to. Right?
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up, because I think that's a point. No, I don't think I know. I see it all the time with people. Or I ask them, what do you sell it for? Oh, I sell it for 75 francs or $75. And then we dig into it, and you can see that that was the exception, not the rule. Most of the time they were selling it for less, but they planned with 75, which is why then they didn't hit their target in the end, because the math just doesn't add up. And so that's a very important point to make, that you have to account for that if that's something you're going to be doing in your business. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Sophia, we're going to wrap things up here. Boy, that went very quickly. So if you think back about our conversation, what is the one thing you'd like people to really take away from our conversation today?
I think you really need to look at who your customer is. And then when it comes to pricing, be really cognizant on what they would pay for your product. And it goes into that whole, I don't know if you speak about the irresistible offer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So the whole aspect of that irresistible offer is not just the product that they're getting, but the whole experience of purchasing something from you.
Yeah.
Right. So that goes from the initial conversation they're having, either be it online or through your website or through your Etsy page or wherever you're selling. And then all the way to receiving your product, the customer service in between and before, after the delivery. That whole journey is that offer. So I'll leave with one additional story. Basically, I was looking at the reviews for also Sophia, and I saw a review, and the lady goes, or the man goes, I forgot who was, the customer goes, I found these cookie cutters for cheaper, but I decided to go with this company because I know they have good customer service. And so if you really tailor your entire business to serve your customer, you can likely beat your competition on pricing, meaning they'll come. Sorry, that's not the right way of saying it. Basically, you'll beat your customer by even offering higher pricing, because they are not buying into just that product; they're buying into the entire journey with you,
to the value of the whole thing. Exactly. And some businesses, the value is more in that customer service than it is in the product itself. That sounds weird to say, but it's true. Yeah, it is. It can be very true. It's absolutely true. So, Sophia, if people wanted to reach out and find you, where shall they go?
They can head to the website, bossetclub.com, and you can subscribe to the mailing list. And we send out an email every week with tips, tricks, and the latest podcast drops. So
excellent. So you can head on over to bossetclub.com. I'll also throw some other links and guides into the show notes for you all, so you can reach out to her in different ways as well. Thank you so much for being with us today, Sophia. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
This was great. Thank you, Janine. And I apologize for my earlier guest who joined the show. Mom life.
No problems. We just roll with the punches here. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you've got questions about pricing in your business, why don't you head on over to JanineListon.com /pricing scorecard and grab a copy of my scorecard there. You can find out for yourself what's going well and where you need to focus on to do better when it comes to pricing and profit in your business. Until next time, everyone, I wish you all the best. And as always, enjoy pricing, everyone.
Bye.